Can you pass me a penny, please, Heather?
Our methods of working involve a lot of wrestling in a very passive, loving way.
Oh, thank you.
And we do work together.
Yeah, we collaborate on nearly everything, and I think just the nature of living together and working together, you're sharing ideas all the time and talking things through all the time. We were aware of pangolins and the plight of the pangolin. It's one of the most predated species on the planet, being the most
predated
mammal. It's being hunted, partly some people say it tastes good, but also mainly for its scales that supposedly have medicinal properties.
Medicinal properties.
Rather like the rhino horn, which is absolute rubbish. It's the same stuff as our fingernails are made of, or hair.
This one was very much born out of the working at
the
what is now the David Attenborough building.
Yeah, the Cambridge Conservation Initiative.
We had a 3-year residency, which was fantastic, working at the University of Cambridge, this whole new building which opened in 2016, which has brought together all of these really incredible sort of global conservation organisations working together under one roof.
We are now heading for the 6th largest mass extinction on the planet, and you can't just sit around and do nothing. Well, I certainly can't.
Oh, yeah, but we're in the midst of it. We're not.
No, well, yeah.
It's just the rapidity of the.
I mean, the extinction rate is 1,000 times above the pre-human fossil record. I mean, it's absolutely shocking what we have done to the planet, and it is human-induced. And yet everyone seems to be going on business as usual. And I'm sorry, it can't be. It has to change.
I mean, we're living in not a climate crisis, but a climate catastrophe. And I think it's so interesting that artists actually are the ones who very much led the way in raising consciousness in their artworks, but also just, you know, being constantly concerned and very creative about how to make the rest of the world sit up and take notice. I mean, the visual arts sector is a tiny one compared to, you know, aviation or construction or any of these massive industries, but we punch above our weight in the arts sector, and I think Dan and Heather have been absolutely pioneers in that aspect.
Yeah, I think we should.
Just putting the glass shelf down here.
And lying on the shelf rather than pinning it?
No, just lying the shelf down here for storage. Can
Okay.
you move those?
What?
Sorry.
Your pangolin, sir.
Okay, take it away.
There you go.
I mean, I could.
There you go.
I could
Never
say,
know.
I mean,
No, you wouldn't know.
The intermingling of art and science and artists and scientists creates new ways of looking, new ways of saying what we're concerned about. And that is just very powerful. Several of my colleagues have just been at Davos at the World Economic Forum talking about the importance of nature, including David Attenborough, of course.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that some of that language that's being used in Davos at the moment is fueled by the encounters they've been having in this building, both with the science but also with the arts.
From a distance, everybody thought blank canvas, you know, and we sort of get closely, and then you see all of this data. The data was extracted in October 2015, and at that point there were 4,734 critically endangered species. Very, very faintly printed. The idea as well for public participation to put on the cotton gloves, always the Latin name in red, and if there was a common name, then to overwrite it in black, bringing it into visibility.
Bigfoot, splayfoot salamander. When we go to Italy, we often take a woodland walk just close to our house. And I think in October, there's always a chance of seeing a lot of the very beautiful salamanders. Actually bright yellow and black. And we go for a walk with your daughter and granddaughter as well.
Yep. Ti bagni tutta? One time we were walking along and we saw 38 salamanders just in a half an hour walk. But more recently we did it very similar time of year, same sort of damp weather, and we only saw 4.
I overwrote the Bigfoot Splayfoot salamander. Wow. And actually, the piece has a power and an emotionality to it that always takes us by surprise. And we know that it's very affecting to many people because it is, in one sense, it is data. But on the other hand, it's so much more. And behind that word, behind that name, lays an incredible complexity and incredible stories as well.
Yeah, I mean, although you know that there's an awful lot of names there and data, and you can read how many names it is, it's not the same as trying to see it all as one sort of wall, which almost became like a memorial wall, except every name is an entire species. It's something really quite shocking about that.
They were the Olympic artists. They were the choice of the main artists for the Olympic Park in 2012. They did this extraordinary project, which was 10 trees at each of the 10 entrances to the east end, the Stratford Park. And these trees were planted. They were trees that came from the UK and beyond, mature trees. And in each of the trees, in their branches, there was a ring, like an Olympic ring, with the history of the community and the site embedded into the ring. So it was a really beautiful, thoughtful, site-specific piece. It came also out of many interviews with the local population and the local community, so people could feel they had ownership of this piece. It wasn't just some thing dumped as a sort of Olympic trophy. It's not like that ridiculous Mittal Tower that Anish Kapoor made, which sort of looms over the horizon. You know, the profile was more subtle and more nuanced. I knew Dan before he knew Heather in the 80s. My friend James Birch ran a gallery in the New King's Road, and he had a show of this extraordinary artist who I think was still at the Royal College, or he'd just finished. And so Dan was always very environmentally concerned, very, loving materials. I mean, he's a really extraordinary eco-artist visionary, and this stuff wasn't very fashionable in the late 80s and into the 90s. It was very much kind of neo-pop, it was very urban art. There were a few people like Andy Goldsworthy, Richard Long, Hamish Fulton, who were making work about the natural world. But, Dan was very much out on a limb doing this and doing it beautifully. Heather I didn't meet until quite some time later, and she was very much associated with performance art, a wonderful wordsmith, performer, incredible physical presence, and then obviously the two tectonic plates of Ackroyd and Harvey came together, and boy, did they. I mean, it was very much a kind of, passionate, intertwined, extraordinarily wonderful situation where they were working together, living together, and making these drop-dead gorgeous artworks. One that really struck me was when they grassed the inside of Dilston Grove, this extraordinary concrete Romanesque-style church in Southwark Park. And it was one of the most beautiful things still that I've ever seen, really.
What's it all about? What's the point? This isn't art. What do you say to that?
I think when you enter in to this space and see the grass growing up on the wall and smell it and feel the humidity, then a lot of those questions go out of the window.
The smell, of course.
Yeah, the smell, and it becomes much more of an experiential thing.
1979, I met Heather. She was 20, I was 21 and she was 19. And I was this artist in residence at this college, Queen Osage College, where she was studying. And me and her got on straight away. You know, we shared the same studio space. And then I remember organising a field trip to Wales to David Nash, the artist, who I'd studied with when I was at college. And I took a group of the students, and they spent a day with him, and Heather was completely bowled over.
David Nash, he had just started a very famous artwork called The Ash Dome, and I was just sort of intrigued and, you know, inspired to see an artist working with living plant material. So I just went back to college and raided the local gardener's stock and started working with grass seeds.
Yeah, no, I mean, Heather and Dan, I was so pleased when they met, you know. I mean, it just seemed like, you know, they were making love on bags of seed. And then later went on to have a child. It was really, yeah, fantastic, because I think they had very symbiotic attributes, you know. And I think between the two of them, that they pooled all their knowledge, and that's how they could make that quantum leap, which it was a quantum leap when they first made a photographic image, you know, out of grass. That was a really big breakthrough. I think it's amazing to use photosynthesis in that way.
So yesterday, the London Fashion Show week opened, and so all of the great and the glorious around the fashion world are congregating into London, and we're going to be doing a piece in and around Extinction Rebellion. So this one has been branded with the Extinction Rebellion logo, which is the hourglass. Gently, gently, gently.
How does it look?
No, it's great. Quite Yeti-ish.
And does the symbol show up?
Turn round. Yeah, it's quite subtle.
Uh-huh.
I like it, I like it,
so
it's
much
subtle.
seed.
We're going to plant seeds in London.
Yeah, wherever we go.
We're meeting up with other people at Temple Tube. We're also meeting up with a wonderful woman called Pam Lucas, who's 70, and she does modelling as well. She's incredibly striking, and she's agreed to wear the coat, which is great. So we haven't done these since the early 1990s, actually.
Going retro.
And that was for Link. That was for our anti-fur campaign. What did you say?
It is very, very impressive.
The organisation Lynx has been marking the 5th anniversary of its campaign against the wearing of fur. It's claiming near overwhelming success and says the time's now come for the fashion trade to completely abandon fur.
Here's one material no one can object to. They don't come any greener than this. Coats, hats, even a filofax made out of living, growing grass.
There's going to be a lot of raised emotions by what we're doing today. We're confronting people with the truth of this climate and ecological emergency. And we'll also be disrupting Fashion Week. This is a major event for those people that are part of it, and we're not in opposition to them. We're coming here to invite them to be part of a global uprising that looks at climate change and the impacts of this ecological collapse and acts in accordance with that. It is a massive cultural industry. If one girl, Greta Thunberg, can, after 6 months of taking action, get hundreds of thousands of children taking action alongside her, then imagine what the fashion industry could do if it turned its attention to the reality of ecological collapse.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
It could get warm after a while.
How's it feel? Swampy.
Funny when you think back to the Lynx anti-fur campaign and how actually everyone sort of wanted was synthetic fur, and now we find ourselves in a situation where the plastics are ruining the oceans and things, and the fibres from washing clothes. The fashion industry has a huge cultural impact on people too, and I think if we can get people to think, and certainly within the fashion world, to maybe reapproach their supply lines and things, then changes can happen. Changes have to happen, really. I like it.
What they're doing is either so beautiful or so weirdly out of place or idiosyncratic that it kind of does make you stop and think, what is that? And I think that's the magic. Once you've captured your audience, they will stay with you and they'll see it through. And maybe receiving a message in that way is much more powerful than seeing it like on a great big billboard.
Or even throwing paint.
Or even throwing a can of Campbell's soup at a painting, yeah.
Where do we run? When do we run it? Where do we run? When do we run it? Where do we run?
It was just really, really moving. It kind of choked me up a bit, you know, just seeing all of these young people just saying enough is enough, you know, this is our future that you're making a completely disposable, you know, degraded, disastrous future. This is unacceptable. The bigger issues, of course, are around who controls media, who controls power.
Thousands of children across the UK are on strike from school today, joining worldwide protests against climate change. They've denounced the government for what they call an alarming lack of leadership. Downing Street has criticised the children's action, saying the disruption increases teachers' workloads and wastes lesson time.
Culture declares climate emergency, bit of a mouthful, but it launched in a really fantastic way with Dan and Heather at the forefront of this. They're co-founders. And boy, did they make institutions sit up and take notice. Because they're artists, they made this visually arresting scenario where a woman in this green, living grass coat on a white horse paraded through the streets of London with people ringing bells. Amazing poetry and statements are made.
Dear Earth, I did not mean to wreck our home. I just forgot how to dwell with you. Even when you told me what would happen, I forgot. Even when you tell me what is happening, I forget.
The human imagination is infinite. We are all creators, makers, and alchemists of change. Be bold, active players in this great reimagining. This is why and how culture matters.
Into the Turbine Hall of Tate, and all credit to Tate to allow that to happen, because it wasn't a guerrilla activity. It was permission was given, but it was still extraordinary. Clippity-clop, in goes the horse.
I wanted them to come into Tate Modern. And it wasn't the first time we'd had horses in the building, so I knew we could do it. But it was a bit of a scrabble to get everything ready in time and to get everybody on board and the security team. But everybody thought it was a great idea. So I was slightly worried about the horse slipping on the ramp. But I was in my office and I got a call to say, they are coming in. We just ran down to the turbine and got ourselves onto the bridge, totally breathless, so we could welcome them.
There is no doubt. There is no doubt. Humanity faces combined catastrophes, climate change, mass extinction of vital biodiversity, degradation of habitats and ecosystems. We invite you to join us. I am an endangered species, but I sing no victim song. We are human and we are artists, and we know where our voice belongs.
It was the visually arresting image that was the real kicker, you know, and pictures of that really put Culture Declares onto the map and made other institutions think, ooh, Tate are doing this, and it doesn't make us look very good. So the art world is one of the most status-anxious, self-conscious, you know, sectors ever. So it made a huge difference in making individuals, but particularly institutions, sit up and take notice.
They've grown really well.
Just the same ones you had at the fashion?
No, they went. They drive.
On the 15th, we have the International Rebellion Day, and that, I believe, is going to be shutting down London and numerous other cities worldwide for as long as it takes, whether that's, well, it's not going to be a day, is it?
Estimated that there are 206 already known extinction rebellion groups across 20 to 30 countries to start with. Big dates, the big date to put in everybody's diary is April the 15th to the 19th.
So Monday.
So, yeah, Monday the 15th of April till the 19th, there will be sustained 24-hour peaceful, non-violent, direct action, disruptive, civil disobedience throughout London. This may not be it, but this is one hell of a part in getting to where we need to be. So, yeah.
I had been part of a small group, including Dan and Heather, who had been involved in the anti-fracking movement in Dorking. And we got wind that something was happening through Rising Up, and there was the sense that it was going to be big. We'd done various preparations for the first rebellion. Myself and many other Christians would use Jesus as an example of non-violent direct action. He uses non-violent direct action to get his message across, to show the love of God.
To make peace with ourselves by making peace with our neighbour Earth and with our God. Help us to see clearly the way to restore right and just relationships with the environment and each other, for the good of all. In Jesus' name, Amen.
We've got the people from the Extinction Rebellion group that started arriving in Hyde Park last night, and it grew up to about 200 people last night that gathered half of the park. Caused us a few issues with the Royal Parks because the plan was they're going to camp out overnight, and being a Royal Park and having Royal Park regulations, it's actually an offence. You're not allowed to camp in the park. Well, you have to work with it. Many problems you have to work pragmatically to solve it. You know, you can't physically stop people camping. It's just not going to happen. It's not perceived to be a good way of using police resources, and it's just not right. And when you've got everybody there who's decent, law-abiding people who are behind a good cause, you have to work with it, solve it. I'm actually a druid. That's just my spiritual path in life, and I consider myself a pagan since I was born. So policing, especially the parks, is very much part of my spiritual way.
Have a great day.
I'm happy to be arrested. I hope it does start to clog up the system. A lot of people are prepared to be arrested for this cause, and a lot of people like me who are grandmothers, who are mothers, people who have never been activists before.
I'm here for my baby, not just for my baby, I'm here for all the animals that can't speak, I'm here for the trees that can't speak, but that spend their days looking after us by making oxygen.
This is my 9-month baby girl, Amalou. And yeah, of course, it's like, that was actually it's been a few years that we were really thinking about should we have a child or not. And really, one of the main concerns for me was just being like, you know, what planet and what situation is society and culture we're bringing our baby into.
I'm a single person. I could say I don't care about the carbon and all those stuff, but my conscience wouldn't allow me to do that. So I want a safer home, because the planet Earth is our home.
We were just lying down on the street because we saw people were blocking the roads, and we know that we wouldn't get run over.
We didn't really think it was going to be like this. This is amazing.
Let's take a moment
to consider why we are here. Let's remember our love for this beautiful planet.
Very good.
What is it?
It's it's a very large hot cross bun. that had the Extinction Rebellion logo on it. It's very clever. It's very nice.
Hello everybody and welcome to the 5th day of occupation in Oxford Circle!
Hello fellow humans. Dear caring fellow humans who care about the planet and care about children and grandchildren, and you don't have to have children to care though, I need to make that very, very clear. We're here in this little island of sanity, and it makes me so happy to be able to join you all and to add my voice to the young people here who have inspired a whole new movement, which we need. And I bring great greetings from Greenpeace, from John Sovan, who I spoke to this morning as I was walking in. And I've got a letter to read. Submitted to this glorious demo by author and illustrator Jackie Morris, and it's a letter to the earth, and it's called Everything is Connected. So I'm going to read this. When I was young, I would lie, pressed to the earth, eyes wide to the skies. I would watch you in your hundreds, criss-cross, hunt on the wing, layers of birds. Some so high, seen only as dark commas against the blue. Once, some believed you slept all winter beneath the ice in ponds. Once, some believed the earth was flat. Now, some believe climate change is fiction.
I love you, Earth. I love you. I love you.
Letter to the Earth is a campaign that supports the call of Extinction Rebellion to make the demand on governments to take greater action. Heather Ackroyd is going to tell you more about Culture Declares Emergency and the call to artists and cultural organisations to take part in this call to action.
I'm Heather from Ackroyd and Harvey, an artist. On the 3rd of April, we launched Culture Declares Emergency to declare a climate and ecological emergency. We have no time. We have barely a minute. The seconds are ticking by. We invite you, creatives from the Cultural Centre, to join us in telling truth. Thank you.
Recently, governments there in the UK, Extinction Rebellion was deemed to be a terrorist organisation, an extreme group. But you know, these are normal people, total peaceful civil disobedience. So
but it was retracted.
It was retracted.
It had to be retracted.
But at the same time, it's already done its damage.
Risking / being imprisoned is no small thing, and I think it shows the depth of people's despair at the current lack of action that people are willing to do that.
We closed down Oxford Street really to traffic. So many people were really actually enjoying that atmosphere without the cars, without the pollution. And somehow it seemed like a new world. They realised that actually the traffic wasn't all going to screw up the rest of London. It all managed to work. People started walking to work and things. The seeming success that that had in the way it actually, there was a fundamental shift within the way I think climate change and the ecological emergency was actually being listened to and being reported on, and the amount of people who were actually starting to think, well, shit, they've got a point.
I think the reason the April 2019 rebellion was so unique and inspiring was the sort of flowering of creativity and possibility. It wasn't just a kind of turn up, march and go home. It kind of felt like we'd taken over the city, you know, with trees on the bridge and just hanging out with people. It was both a powerful political statement and a really enjoyable experience.
Although there was a huge sort of swelling, groundswell of people involved, I think the political will just was not there.
That rebellion and XR more generally was what really properly got me involved in climate activism, and that is why I'm now doing climate activism in the legal profession. I probably wouldn't be doing that had it not been for XR. I think that's quite a common experience as well. I think there's quite a lot of people and groups that formed from that. So if you just say, oh, what did XR itself achieve? It's easy to say, oh, it didn't achieve very much. But actually, if you look at all of the different groups and activism that it spawned, I think its influence has been massive.
So here we are in the City of London, and this is the relatively newly opened Bloomberg building. So we're putting together a temporary installation to be there for about 2 months. So yeah, we need to get 52 trees out.
So there's 52 here, and how many have you got? You've got about 100 or so.
We've got about, I think, just under 200 surviving trees.
Okay, and these are 11 years old. They're all 11 years.
12 years old.
They're all 12 years old.
Yeah.
Them taking up the legacy of Joseph Boyce with these wonderful trees with Boyce's acorns is again so appropriate. This is on the very day that Tater declared climate emergency, that Extinction Rebellion are, making demonstrations within the city, and these are all interconnected. Art and artists are leading this cry of declaring that it is a climate emergency.
I think now with COVID-19, suddenly everything is possible. We can do this, we can do that, we can shut down the airports, we can, and I don't think anything is going to be normal again, actually.
I think we have to ask ourselves profoundly difficult questions. Should we even be making art as we have been making art in the last 30, 40 years? And what is more important? Where will we find most meaning and most presence in doing what we do?
this has been my solace. I mean, this has been my sanctuary and my, you know, little spell place. It's really special. Coronavirus, MERS, more recently, you know, swine flu, bird flu, avian flu, Ebola, they've all been held just about in check. This one got out. I mean, I think it was a Harvard Business School, 2 academics wrote a book in 2003 saying, you know, are we prepared for disasters? The answer is no.
Heather and I, we've been working together for 30 years, and I think some of the problem with lockdown for couples is that actually they've never spent so much time together. And I think for us now, we've actually never spent so much time apart. So I've actually found it at first really quite refreshing to have that time and that space, and to feel that there weren't, you know, 350 things that you should have been doing and 50 of those that you should have already done, and that constant running.
I think we've both been carrying so many stresses around the big stuff that's happening around the world we're living in, and you know that is with us as we come back into our home, as we go to bed, as we wake up, as we're cleaning our teeth, watching TV, you know, opening an email because somebody's 8 hours behind and we've got to answer an email. There's been no space for either of us to actually be. I've reached a threshold moment. I've really reached a threshold moment. I think Dan has as well. I mean, we really are saying, where does our artistic relationship work now? How does that work? And where does our personal relationship really work within that as well?
From the get-go, like, I was never going to take sides. I love them both, right? I mean, I don't know how they could work and be in a relationship together anyway. I couldn't do that, do you know what I mean? Like, working 30 years, no way. Like, there's no way I could do that. I feel like separation or communication's so key, right? And I think that was where a lot of things went missing down the line. You know, work stress. I mean, I just personally could never work with my partner. I couldn't do it. Not at the level they do. Like, it's joint, right?
I mean, you know, Heather and Dan, I was best woman at their wedding. And Scylla was the other one, and that was it. And Adele came, and that we were the only witnesses. And then it didn't last very long after that, you know. I think it's really hard being in a duo anyway, making work, because, you know, people, they grow emotionally at different rates. You know, there's, you know, one goes, you know, so it's going like this, and yeah, and you really need to have all hands on deck. And I don't know, it must be incredibly difficult for Heather and Dan now that they split up, you know.
Everybody's in crisis, so actually, it's not like we're in crisis and everybody's going around in normal. It's like, it's relative. We're all in this place. I feel it because I felt so exposed. But I really take that. I'm taking every day of this with gratitude. Absolutely. And look, this is on my back door. How fortunate. How fortunate.
All in.
You almost can't work out the difference now between...
Oh, this one's going silvery grey, isn't it, too?
Oh my God. Felled by Storm Eunice.
It's funny, you get the feeling that they look much smaller, don't they?
So quite a lot of insects are going to be happy with this, I think. Oh my goodness. I don't know. I mean, it's to actually recreate the artwork from the beginning would involve identifying 2 ash trees in the woods that are afflicted with the disease, felling them. I mean, the whole process was really complicated.
I think it was never going to be a 100% permanent piece. It would have been nice that it stood up for longer, but I don't know. I find it quite interesting, just the way nature. It has, it will rot at some point. It would have always rotted at some point. It was taken down by the storm, but that's part of the reality of where we are at, isn't it?
Yeah. And also Storm Eunice, and the research the little bit of research we've done into Eunice Newton-Foote, who was a scientist who delivered a paper for the American Advancement of Science in 1856. I'll just repeat that, 1856, where she showed that actually if you increase the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it was going to bring on temperature change. So she was already presenting a paper discussing the greenhouse effect. And in the meanwhile, Dan and I were shortlisted for, a commission on this very remote former whaling station, South Georgia Islands. So, we've had a project to keep us occupied whilst he's been in isolation.
From 150 people, we were shortlisted down to 3 artists for a project with a very healthy budget, although that's shifting a little bit. But there we're the island's 2,000 miles, I think, from the Falkland Islands. It's down near Antarctica. Should we, as responsible artists, knowing what we know, be proposing a sculpture for an island that actually the tourists it gets are on cruise liners?
I'm struggling with putting in a big artwork in this really remote part of the world, which will only be seen by people who can travel, on these cruise ships, and a lot of these people are fascinated with the conservation, and there's a wealth of really exquisite conservation there.
Our love and our respect for whales, and this place is it's an old whaling station that has been closed from the 50s, and they specifically want a piece of work on the Flensing Plan, which was this huge wooden area where they would drag the whale carcasses out of the water, flints them, the blubber would go one way, the meat would go another way, the bones would go to the glue cookery. It was a place where thousands and thousands of whales were slaughtered.
We have Stranded, which is an artwork that we actually first exhibited at the Natural History Museum in 2006. So that has been invited to be shown in a group show under the title Green Currents in Paris, so Courant Vert, forgive my French. And we haven't seen this sculpture since 2016. No, it's just jammed. Whale!
What creature is that?
What's that?
The droppings.
There's no mould over the bone. There's no discoloration of the crystal.
No.
So that in itself is good.
Yeah. This whale had been dead for about a month and had been seen in different locations. We've lost some of the fin, which is unfortunate. So, when we got there, there was no point in doing an autopsy on it or anything. They made us take some measurements and things of it.
I would say that was 19 foot 6 inches.
It's a juvenile minke whale. Not sure why it died. We didn't find plastic in its stomach. Found a lot of other smelly stuff in its stomach, but so we were, 3 days on the beach taking the bones out, and then about 2 months cleaning the whole skeleton, degreasing it, getting all the flesh off it, and and then the crystallization process.
That's pretty good.
You know, it's never particularly easy and certainly not satisfying to see the piece in this process of change or slow degradation.
Transition. It's transition, which I think.
Well, there is a level of degradation.
None of us stay looking beautiful forever. So, you know, I think it's the nature of the piece, and perhaps it will transform into something else in time to come.
We don't do permanent, you know, we are always looking at that kind of edge of, you know, between vulnerability, fragility, transition, transformation.
A lot of our work is actually compostable and organic and actually goes back into the ground. So, you know, a lot of the time when we don't make saleable things, which is a little bit of an odd situation to be in. Sometimes we'd prefer that we did, I think, financially, But it's about, I mean, I suppose that's why we make work. It's about the interest of materials and what happens to materials and natural processes.
I think with Dan and Heather, I don't want to, you know, cast opinions about their personal relationships. I mean, obviously, I'm very sad that they've parted as a couple, and they have, you know, lovely Adele together, and that their life, you know, is continuing in separate directions. But they seem to be able to continue to work together, which I think is wonderful.
We were pulled together because we're part of the writers and artists arm of Extinction Rebellion. It may be the most important moment in human history for turning around this great ship of our folly and our foolishness and our almost suicidal, reckless disregard for nature.
It's either extinction or we become a newer, more efficient, more loving species. Our love must save the world, for love is the last power that stands between us and extinction.
We as artists have to find a way to speak to the great love that every human being, whether they're aware of it or not, has for this planet, has for the air that we breathe, and for the earth that we stand on, for the fruit, for the sunlight that we receive.
As an economist once said, there is only one true economy on our planet, and that is photosynthesis. And photosynthesis takes light and it converts it to life, and it nourishes us all.
I'm a huge believer in the power of art. Whilst we are here right now, art is such a fucking threat that the Met Police have raided the Extinction Rebellion art factory. At its very essence, for me, art is the soul of humanity.
We are part of nature, and we need to learn to love that.
It goes completely without saying that art galleries and museums should have the climate crisis as part of their remit, because otherwise it's a complete failure of imagination. If you're too interested, you're more interested in aesthetics than the survival of human life, then I think you've completely, you are like the ostrich in the story with your head buried deep down into the increasingly dying earth.
Well, I think their works, their job is just special itself. You know, it's stunning. So the emotion that you feel when you see them, when you see their works, I think they're just special. It's like a magic. Yeah.
And are you proud of him?
I'm very proud. I'm very proud. He's the best dad.
Thank you.
I really love him. And
No, questo è un'amica Fiona che si sta lavorando.
It's a very particular time, I think, for me. My mother died 2 weeks ago, and then I've just been over in Veneto, where my older daughter and 2 grandchildren live, and they're going through a phase of separation and things, and then situations between Heather and I mean, we still work very well together, but there's a lot of tensions there too. So yeah, it's a bit of an odd time all round, really.
And you've had health issues?
Yeah, I've that's something I'm a little concerned about too, but then everything has been caught nice and early and the treatments seem to have gone well, so in the end you can't worry about that too much. I mean, obviously I need to look after myself. That's a hard one to learn, but I think I'm getting there.
You know, I've always been aware that my parents will, their work has to align with their morals and their ethics. And that's been something that I've always looked up to, because they won't take certain jobs or certain awards or certain commissions because they're not in line with their kind of like moral ethics and their outview on life. Financially it's huge, right? Especially because there's some corporations out there who will pay huge amounts of sums, but if you look back to where the money's coming from and all these sort of things, it's negative, right? And so I definitely recognise that at some points in my life my parents probably could have been very, very wealthy.
I think we've always sort of kept true to the spirit of ourselves somehow, and we have been approached for doing a lot of things that could have made us some money. BMW with their green Mini wanted us to do a photosynthesis photograph of it, and when you look at the car, it's not really a green car at all, so it just didn't seem right to do things like that. Monsanto, we had a letter from an advertising company wanting us to do the portraits of the Monsanto directors in photosynthesis. Please.
They would quickly lose credibility if they were like green guns for hire for anybody who wanted to kind of perk up their eco-image, get yourself done in Ackroyd and Harvey grass, or get them to do some kind of, crystal project or whatever. It would be ruination for them. And I mean, credibility is a bit like your virginity. You can't get it back again once you've lost it, and I think it's very problematic. Not that I'm advocating virginity, by the way, but I'm just saying that, it is something that, you have to be very careful to guard as an artist.
I want to breathe like you. These streets are mine too. Rich businessmen not paying fines for breaking environmental laws, but it's the black and the poor that have to play with their lives. When clean air is a luxury, death is the price for those who can't afford it.
2 weeks ago, there was the anniversary, the 10th year that the beautiful 9-year-old Ella Adu-Kisi Deborah passed away. And the report was that actually it was because her lungs were so adversely and badly affected by the pollutants that she was breathing in, that it was the first certified death due to road pollution.
You hear a story and you're thinking a young schoolgirl died because of air pollution and asthma, and you're like, oh, that's actually, and then you read and it's like, that's really local. That could have been, it could have been my sister, it could have been my cousin, and that's when it hits home.
HGV6 axles, 44 times 2 inches and 54 foot on top of that, as it circles around our south, happily chugging and leaving our children's lungs black. NO2 means something to me, but what does it mean to you, or do you not care? Because you think you're in an area that's for the well-to-do. Do we really care? Yeah!
The piece of work that we're doing is for the Hayward exhibition.
Yeah.
And it's curated, titled Dear Earth, Art and Hope in a Time of Crisis. So we'll be going out in a short while to do some photographs on a busy road, and hopefully not, stopping drivers too much.
I mean, this is a classic example. So, this is an independent secondary school, but then you've got this coming around this tiny little corner. So, and then you've got little kids at this height.
Nice, yeah.
So for me, I can walk here, walk to the train station, but all this traffic and stuff, all this commerce has nothing to do with Lewisham.
Right.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think their large photosynthesis portrait pieces are a very lovely way of celebrating other individuals from across very different spectrums. They've celebrated all different kinds of people from different walks of life. Some of them are eco-activists, some of them are indigenous people. I mean, a whole range of different faces and forms.
I think they got in touch with me, seeing my campaigning about rights of nature and climate activism in the legal profession. I was very honoured and touched, quite intrigued. I'd never heard of that kind of project, to, you know, be effectively photographed or painted in grass almost. But yeah, I was very intrigued by it, and the end result was also really beautiful, and yeah, bigger than I was expecting as well. It was massive.
Just putting the slide in the projector.
We have Love Sega. The next step really is, now that we've sized up the negatives, is we're going to plant the seed onto the canvases. The 5 portraits from Dear Earth, Soil, Seed, Air and Water, the activists there are, you know, they are really pushing forward, and there are changes happening directly as a result of that.
And for us, the collaboration there it was very much about their voice as well, not just our work. So whenever we did any press or anything, that we invited them to be present and to have a voice.
Oh, it's going to fall in your camera.
That's all right.
Go straight in. Here you go.
Wow. Wow.
This is our temporary dark room, growing room.
Well, it's not bad, is it?
I tell you, this is probably the best space we've had.
Yeah. Oh, it's a wonderful group to be part of.
But we'll show you what.
So this just diffuses and takes away the projected negative, but you'll see it going into positive.
That's fantastic. Oh. Thank you both.
Bet you've never seen your face in grass before.
I have never.
It is. It's a bit of witchcraft in here, but never mind.
Love Sabres on grass.
Yeah. Well, that's another article.
Yeah. It's all about art history and portraiture, but it's also a very radical way of doing it because, of course, these images only endure in photographic records, which are great, but they're not the same thing.
It's chlorophyll. We really had to go like finesse.
It is a funny moment in time, really, on a level, because I think after 33 years of collaborating together, it's almost as if our work has come of age now. We're being accepted into some of the larger galleries, invited to biennales and things, and yet we're at a point where I think we're both sort of thinking about moving in slightly different directions. I think the works that Heather wants to do, I really appreciate them and see the value of them, but they've shifted from the way we used to work into something other that brings back her performance and things.
But it was there from the very beginning.
But it's got more intense, Heather. It's
Yeah,
been
but
there from the beginning.
If you look back at
it's
Lasso Lasso, that was
shifted
very performance-based.
Yes,
Lots of our work has been quite performance-based. But I think the reality is
we want to work in different ways going forward.
Yeah. No, I think that's what I've been saying, Heather.
To pull up, I mean, how do you, I really want to step away from resentment, I want to step away from anger, I want to step away from hurt, I want to step away from betrayal. You know, it's 3 years since we went into crisis, Dan, because there was issues of trust happening.
Heather, yeah, I think though, I mean, we've been over this so many times, and
but I'm moving forward through it, Dan.
I hope you are, but it always comes back, and this...
Issues of trust.
Yeah, issues of trust, betrayal, the whole language around it is you're not stepping back, you're reinforcing that all the time. And
no, I said actually I want to be away from those elements, and I really feel
you're not. You return to them all the time.
No, I don't.
Which is why I'm
because I have love in my life now, and that shifts things. And you have love in your life,
yes,
and that shifts things. That our love for each other has shifted.
Yes, that's true.
You took a long time to
to resurface.
Stuff and resurface, don't you?
Yeah.
How did you achieve that? A lot of stopping.
It was more through a recognition that actually I needed some intimacy in my life. I wasn't looking for a relationship, but, you know, I'm physical. I enjoy physical relationships, and I just thought, yeah, you know, but also companionship without attachments. But, you know, then you meet someone and it's like, oh, hang on a minute, this is something that happens which you're not necessarily anticipating or expecting, and you know there's a very strong, there's a hugely strong emotional counterpart to it. You know, Ackroyd and Harvey it's not going to go away. It's just, it will just have to evolve. And, you know, I mean, it's how we evolve in a way that honours us both. I mean, maybe we have this time to go back to some wellspring, back to whatever the font of our, you know, to go back and really address artistically, you know, our needs. And, you know, Dana's, you know, an extraordinary kind of alchemist of materials, and you know, it's fantastic, and I think to be able to give each other that space to follow, you know, just our natural curve to some extent, because I've no longer, you know, I want to fly again, you know, I'm happy.
No, I think we've both been very, very lucky, or I feel lucky, and I feel happy for Heather with her relationship. It's somebody who I respect as well, so that makes it easier, and I think you respect my partner.
Yeah.
So
now it's practical things, I imagine, will be the...
Yeah, that's a little bit of a nightmare to
Do we have a
sort
drink?
through. Yeah, whiskey, please.
They need irrigation.
The irrigation hasn't been switched on yet.
But there are mixed sizes, just because some of them have suffered various problems over the years, but we've tried to keep with them all.
The Boys Oak Trees, for example, 100 Oaks, that's a project they began in, 2007? Now that it's at a pivotal moment where it's moving from something that's, you know, a kind of conversational piece, if you like, to potentially a project that will help regenerate our landscapes is, you know, that's an amazing story in itself, isn't it?
2007, caught a train, 2-night stopover in Castle, German city where Joseph Beuys initiated 7,000 oaks in 1982 for the 7th Documenta. The trees were producing acorns. We were hosted and shown around the trees, collected as many as we could get in the hand luggage, brought them back, started germinating them, potted up all of the acorns, and these are the surviving trees. Joseph Beuys was an extraordinary artist, and he sort of placed ecology, education on the same level playing field as economics and politics. In fact, he is one of the co-founders of the German Green Party, who are now in coalition politically in Germany. And he was just absolutely clear that if our biosphere is polluted and poisonous, then there would be huge suffering. The impact of that would be enormous. I completely love them. Still umbilically attached.
It's a bit like having children. They're a labour, but of course you love them. And the tiny little pots that they started in, to these, they take more and more to move them around, but happy trees.
It's fantastic. Got loads of arms. It just shows it's really good, healthy soil. All right, let's go.
I think that probably will be their lasting legacy when they've got all of the boys as acorns.
Yeah, and dare I say, there are 2 of them on Tate Modern's landscape, and I helped that happen. And those trees will be there, growing long after I've been buried for a long time. You know, it's an amazing thing to feel that one's been part of.
I think, looking forward, hope is one of those words, isn't it? We hope that these trees will survive for sure, and they have a potential for living 800, maybe 1,000 years, but it's a matter of what happens to the climate around them. They're going to help by what they do, taking in CO2 and giving out oxygen, but there are not many trees here. It's a start though, and our hearts are within them. It's an ongoing project, and why can't a tree be a work of art? Our grass is a work of art. Living things can be works of art. We could be works of art.
Well, yeah.
Well, I don't know.